lot of times when people are nearing retirement, they want to know how much is enough. They want to know how much they need to meet their lifestyle expectations in retirement. They want to know, can they retire? How much longer do they have to work? And at our firm, a question that I've been hearing more and more is, how do I give the most in retirement? How do I give the most tax efficiently? How can I plan to give? What does that look like in retirement? I think that's such an exciting question and not something that we talk about enough. So let's change the mindset from how much is enough to how much can I give? Hi, I'm Gracie with Stewardship Investments. I'm a financial advisor, and let's dig into this case study where we can see some real life examples of how we might give strategically, tax efficiently in retirement. So let me introduce to you Jim and Wendy. These names haven't changed, and this is purely for the point of explaining to you how to give generously and strategically in retirement. These figures are not promissory, and we're not guaranteeing anything. So we're looking at a big picture here. But let's talk about Jim and Wendy. They're both 55 years old. And here is just a blueprint of their current situation. So we see up here, their net worth is $2 million. Jim's assets here, combined finances, just separate names on each thing. So Jim worked at the same company most of his working career, and he got just under $700,000 that he's going to roll over into an IRA. His current 401k, he just started just over $6,000. He has a Roth IRA. So does Pam. So they're killing it there. He's getting those up and going. And then Pam also has a 401k at $165,845. And then together at the bank, they have about $50,000. That's emergency fund, savings account, checking account. And then their joint brokerage account is about $180,000. Their home value is sitting at $850,000. They don't owe anything on that. Jim and Wendy are completely debt-free, and they have been for quite some time. So that's very exciting. So next, let's talk about their goals. As of now, they're just saying, hey, you know what, Gracie, we really want to retire at 60. As of late, Jim is saying, my new job is actually kind of fun. What would it look like if I did work till 62? And we'll get into that later. They currently spend $6,000 a month. They think they're going to continue spending $6,000 a month once they hit retirement. This is a common theme that people think they're going to spend similarly in retirement. And I just want to plan for more than that. And I want us to plan in some vacations, and I want them to be able to live well, go on vacations, go hiking, things like that. These are their golden years, and we want them to retire well. So we'll look at that when we get into the planning. The other two things that we're going to consider are healthcare costs. So this first one, mind you, there is a gap here between retirement and when Medicare is going to kick in. We're not going to talk about that. That's not the purpose of this video, but I'm just going to acknowledge it. So we're saying, assuming their health insurance is covered, the average American in retirement outside of that would spend around just over $6,000 a year, whether that's supplements, massages, going to the chiropractor, things like that. So we're going to plan for that. Our other healthcare factor is going to be long-term care insurance. Now, Jim and Wendy currently do not have long-term care insurance in place. They are in that sweet spot. Age 55 to 65 is a great time to look at long-term care insurance, start applying and seeing quotes. But as of now, we're just going to continue on. They don't have any in place. And so we're going to assume they're spending the last 2 years of their life needing care. So we're going to say they're going to have somebody come into their home and take care of them. And we're also going to assume that they're going to cash flow that. And so that national average right now, assuming inflation, is $75,504 a year. So we're just going to assume they're going to out of pocket cover that the last 2 years of each of their lives. Something about creating a financial plan, in my mind, you never want to overpromise. You never want to assume less. You want to assume more. You want cushion. We don't want to give you fluffy numbers. We want to give you as accurate as we can, knowing this is a software. This isn't real life. This is projections. This is a tool. These aren't guarantees. So you might be thinking, they might not need that. And hopefully they don't. But if they do, we want to be prepared. Income. Jim at his new job is making $140,000 when he's bringing in $62,000. For their Social Security accounts, we're going to assume they're going to start drawing Social Security at their full retirement age. And savings. So currently, Jim is putting 6% into his 401k, and he's getting a 3% match. Wendy's putting in 3%, getting a 3% match, and they're both maxing out their Roth IRAs, which is great. Okay, so where does that put us? Now you're probably thinking, Jim and Wendy are doing pretty good, and they are. But the questions we're answering today are not how much do they need to retire, all of those things. the questions we want to explore today are how can they give strategically, tax efficiently, and how can we plan for giving in our retirement? And part of that is outside of this planning. Part of it starts now with them praying, with them having a plan as a family. At Stewardship Investments, we really encourage families to have a written giving plan that is updated every year. And part of that is it allows God to stretch you. It allows you to be open-handed and also like vision open. And what I mean by that is to be looking around for opportunities because you've already decided with your spouse how much money you're going to give for this year. Not necessarily where all that's going to go. Some families create a giving fund or a God fund, and as things come up, they already have that earmarked money set aside so they can give excitedly and watch God show up in different ways. So that is planned giving. These are different types of planned giving. So the first thing I want to show you is what the RMDs are going to be for Jim and Wendy. And an RMD is a required minimum distribution. And so for Jim and Wendy, it's going to be age 75 because they were born after 1960. A lot of you watching this, your RMDs might be starting at age 73, but for the sake of Jim and Wendy, it is going to be 75 for them. So at 75, they are going to have to take out a section of their retirement funds. Not all retirement accounts are subject to RMDs, but like their IRAs, their 401ks, those are going to be. And that's what we're going to look at today. So required minimum distributions. That money that we take out, it can be a larger amount if your account balance is heftier, is what I was going to say, is bigger. But that's okay because we can plan for it. We can be strategic about it. You do have to pay income tax on the RMDs that you're taking out. If you don't take your RMDs out, you can have hefty penalties up to 25%. If you correct it really quickly, you can sometimes get that lower to 10%, but it's just not good. You want to make sure you're paying it. And so the cool thing about RMDs, and this is especially cool for Jim and Wendy, because the question we're after today is how do we give the most strategically? And a lot of that is going to be found here. And it's called a Qualified Charitable Distribution. And what that means is we're going to take funds directly from their RMD and we're going to send it right to a nonprofit, a charity, a church, something of that nature. They're never going to pay tax on it. That church isn't going to pay tax on it. It's grown tax-free, and their IRA is going to be gifted tax-free. And let me show you how that plays out. Okay, so this is a pretty busy page. We're going to stay here at plan distribution and tax payment. These are the two columns I want you to be paying the most attention to. So let's scroll down. We're going to find, all right, here we go. So in 2045, they are going to both turn 75, and these plan distributions are going to start. So the system is calculating, as of now, we're going to assume the required minimum distributions are going to start off at $137,489. And you might be thinking, that's a lot. And it is, but it's going to supplement their income. They're going to be able to give, and we're going to plan for it. And so the tax payment that year, you can see the prior years, their tax payments were $1,400, $1,800, and then all of a sudden $36,000 in their tax payments. So what happens if we do a qualified charitable distribution and we give some of that money from, instead of the RMD, over to a charitable distribution? And so what I've done is I've just switched to my proposed plan. So we were looking at if we didn't change anything. This is saying, well, what if we did give to some charities? So that is saying, okay, so here's our plan distribution, and here's our tax payment, $14,000. Quite different from $36,000. So you can see we're paying less in taxes, which is very exciting. So now let's look at what we did change. Well, we're going to go to our retirement analysis, and I'm going to walk you through the buttons that I changed. So what I assumed is both, this is a busy page, bear with me. What I assumed is both Jim and Pam started giving $25,000 each. They're doing it as a family, but from each of their accounts, $25,000 a year into a charity. So they could give a lot more than that. And this is just a starting point. A lot of families tithe 10%, but then they also give above that. And qualified charitable distributions are a great way to do that. The other thing I'm going to factor in is we talked about, this is different for our giving conversation, but bear with me. I'm going to assume they go on a vacation. They don't have children. It's just the two of them. So I'm going to assume they're spending $3,000 a year going on a vacation. and making those changes, giving out of their RMDs, spending some on vacations is going to make a difference. And let's look at that. The other thing that's going to make a difference for Jim and Wendy is we're going to do some Roth conversions. We're not going to go crazy. I just had this system model. What if we filled up their current tax bracket and moved some money from their traditional retirement accounts over to their Roth? And we can get into that more in a different video. I just wanted to say that is something that we're accounting for. And if we did that, just filled up their current tax bracket, nothing crazy, we're going to spend $116,000 less in taxes. And they're going to have to pull out almost $400,000 less from their accounts. And so we're going to end with a little over $1 million more in tax adjusted assets. So that's an exciting thing. And that's something I wanted to make sure I'm showing you because that is going to affect the plan. Another factor we're going to talk about is a donor advised fund. And that's an account that we're going to open up for Jim. And he's going to be able to give some of his assets to the donor advised fund and not pay tax on it, get a tax break, and then those funds are also going to get given to a charity. And the cool thing about the donor advised fund for Jim is he had that one 401k at his, like I said before, his current or his first employer, he was there for years. We saw the balance of that 401k. That's huge. It wasn't really touched. The capital gains in that are going to be pretty egregious. Not egregious. They're going to be large. And there might be funds in there that are egregious. And something about stewardship investments is we like to invest in funds that are biblically responsible. We want to invest in things that make the world rejoice, to make an impact. We don't want to invest in anything that we're not proud to own, such as abortion or sex trafficking, exploitation, things like that. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go through Jim's 401k. We're going to find funds that have high capital gains or funds that we just don't want to profit from. And we're going to move those over to the donor advised fund tax-free. And we're going to shift out of those. And so that's a really great opportunity to shift our portfolio, to save on taxes, and to give more again. So that's another huge giving strategy. So what we're modeling for Jim and Wendy is that they give out of their IRAs. They do qualified charitable distributions, those RMD years. And so instead of taking their full RMD, but instead of taking it fully as income, they're gifting a portion of that to a charity, and they're going to save taxes. The donor advised fund, they're going to take some of the highest capital gains, the funds they don't want to be a part of anymore, and they're going to give those to their donor advised fund. And they're also going to do some Roth conversions, meaning they're going to bring some of their traditional IRA money over into a Roth IRA and just to fill up their current tax bracket. And here is the difference that is going to make. So you can see that the plan that we've tweaked, they're going to end with almost $3.2 million more in their portfolio. And the goal today wasn't to increase their portfolio, but by being tax efficient and giving more, we can. And so they could give more, they could travel more, there's options with that money. But you can see here the blue, that's if they don't change anything. The green here, that is if they were to make these changes. And you can see the ending value at age 90, assuming a median market, if they didn't change anything, they're ending at $7.4 million. If they do some giving, some Roth conversion, just simple things. And if they vacation, they're going to end at about $10.6 million. Again, these are estimates. These are not guarantees. This is a vacuum sealed program where everything is going to run exactly as we tell it to. And that's not real life. But we do want to simulate that you can be tax advantaged and smart and give as much as you can. And that's something we want to encourage our clients to do. And people that are our clients, just you guys watching, you can give and be blessed, and you can give and do it well. And you can give more if you're strategic about it. And that's what I think is so exciting. If you're watching this and you're like, wow, I want to know what I could do in retirement, what I could give, how much I could save if I gave more. We do offer free financial consults. So fill out a form on our website. Me or somebody on our team would absolutely love to go over your plan with you. It's no cost. We just want to bless you. We want to show you what this looks like for you. So please do reach out, and I hope you have a great day.